I've heard about colonialism, I've heard about countries taking over other countries, I've heard about oppression, but I never thought in my whole life I'll ever experience or witness something as drastic as this. In a blatant form of expression and zero consideration and zero respect, here is an American congressman explaining to his peers on how America should have acted in Niger, or can still act. Niger very recently asked American soldiers to leave their soil.
The American presence on the territory of the Republic of Niger is illegal and violates all the constitutional and democratic rules.
And normally when you're asked to leave somebody's soil, what do? You leave. This American congressman named Gaetz say America shouldn't have done that. They should have forcefully sent the C-130s on Niger airspace and forced themselves into Niger. Should any country in Africa dare to turn off their defense system, Americans should bomb them and destroy them. Listening to this guy, you think you're listening to a bully talking to people with no defense against them. This is crazy, fellas. Listen to this. He's going to mention C-130, and I'm going to explain to you what C-130 is for you to get the context. So C-130s are airplanes made by the armed company Lockheed Martin. It's an American 4-engine turboprop military transport aircraft designed and built by Lockheed. It is capable of using unprepared runway for takeoffs and landing. So this is a little bit like a 4x4 of airplanes. Listen to this.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to warn this body of the deteriorating conditions in the African country of Niger and to give rise to the concern of service members and contractors. More than 1,000 of them right now are functionally being held hostage in Niger. They are being used as pawns during a negotiation that has left America at the bended knee of third world criminals and thugs as our troops seek medicine and fresh water.
Third world criminals and thugs. That's what you are called. Third world criminals. Unbelievable. Let's go.
And troop rotations. How did we get here with more than 1,100 Americans endangered right now in Niger? Well, it started back in March of 2023. Secretary of State Antony Blinken went to Niger and proclaimed that it was a model of resilience, a platform for great democracy. It would be where America would execute its Africa strategy. 1 year later, almost to the day, there was a coup in Niger. And guess who overthrew the government that we said was the great model of resilience? People we trained. We trained the coup leaders to go throw out the democratically elected government of Niger. And I know this will surprise you, but after that occurs, they say they want our bases that U.S. taxpayers have poured more than $1 billion into gone. They want our service members gone. And so I came to this floor after hearing from some of my constituents who were stationed in Niger. And after the overthrow of the government, there weren't resupply flights. They said, Congressman, we are going to be out of medicine in May if we don't get this sorted out. 3 days after I filed part 1 of the report that I am supplementing today, the Biden administration announced that we will be leaving Niger. A welcome sign, I'm sure, but the leaving didn't actually happen. We have people who are now more than 200 days into a 180-day rotation, and while the negotiation regarding retrograde and withdrawal are ongoing, the government in Niger is using the well-being and health of our service members as leverage to get what they want out of our government. Our troops aren't getting medicine for malaria, for cholesterol, for their blood pressure, chronic conditions. And I have received the letters from the wives, from the fathers of the people who are in Niger now, and they say, we know that our family members are being extorted by the local governments when they try to leave, hundreds of dollars to even bring a bag through the airport. We know that Russians are behind the wire. You know what a real U.S. president would do? Say that C-130s are on their way to Niger today with the water and the medicine and the food our troops need, that they will have a full fighter pilot escort there. And if the Nigerian government or any other third world thug tries to even turn on their air defense systems, we should show those leaders and those thugs what the target package looks like on their houses and their family members, because it should not be Americans that are suffering because President Biden and Blinken are so embarrassed that their strategy in Africa failed that they're willing to let Americans' conditions deteriorate.
Do you hear that? He said, a real president would have sent a C-100 airplane with water, food, and other things. And should any of the third world country dare to switch on their air defense, we would create mayhem in their house, on their families. Do you hear that? I mean, it's the entitlement for me. It's the privilege for me. It's we are superior to you. You are absolutely nothing. Like, you don't need to say that to say that. You don't need to say those words. Like, we can go to your house, and if any of the third world country dare to do this, and we're going in their house, in their countries. Let me give you context very quickly. Niger is Niger. Beautiful place, lovely people. The country was colonized by the French for many, many years. And after independence in the 1960s, the French still kept hold of the economy of the country. Niger is a major producer of uranium. And uranium is what you need for the atomic bomb. Not just the atomic bomb, also for the creation of electricity. France used Niger's uranium for many years to make much of its electricity. France made so much electricity that it sold some of the electricity made from Niger uranium to other European countries. In Niger used to be French and American troops. They were stationed there trying to fight terrorists, supposedly. The American soldiers went to Niger to train Nigerians on how to fight against terrorists. In the same occasion, they proposed to build an air base, an American base, worth $100 million with the goal of surveilling terrorists around Africa. I mean, it's crazy. You in America need to surveil terrorists in Africa, in somebody else's country. I mean, if you want to protect your house, shouldn't you have bouncers in front of your house, standing at the door, looking after the house? Why would you need to go to somebody else's country so you can build a base? I mean, many people believe the goal was not just to surveil terrorists, it was also to make sure Americans' influence reign in that side of Africa. Now, the new government has come into power in Niger. These are soldiers that were against the president. The previous president seemed to be working for Western nations because his country had so much uranium. In the meantime, most of the people lived in darkness. There was no electricity for the country. The country produced so much uranium, but in the same token, they have no electricity for the people. It made no sense. Therefore, the soldiers stood up and toppled the president and they took power. Now, once they took power, the first thing they did, they called the French ambassador to come and have a meeting with them because they are the new government. The French ambassador ignored them. You come to somebody's country, they've changed the government. The new government said, come, you as a French ambassador, come, let's have a talk. The French ambassador ignored them. And they say to him, we're giving you 48 hours to leave the country. After doing that, France was not happy. France said, we do not recognize you as a government. You are not democratically elected.
I believe our policy is the correct one. It's based on the courage of President Bazoum, on the efforts of our diplomats and our ambassador in Niger, who will stay despite pressure from coup leaders. We do not recognize them. We support the president, who's not resigned.
We're talking here about somebody else's country. This is Niger. The Nigerians say it's not for you to tell us whether we are legitimate or not. You are not Nigerian. You are going to leave our country. Emmanuel Macron stood up and said, if you dare touch my interest, I am going to defend them. In other words, I am ready to bomb you if that's necessary. Now, because that sounded too weird and too odd in somebody else's country, they were ashamed. The people of Niger, the civilians, came down the street in millions asking French soldiers to leave the country. They eventually left. Americans were also in Niger, in Agadez. That's where they were stationed in their base. They thought they had no issue. And in fact, they had no issue until the Nigerian Prime Minister traveled to Iran, going to have a talk with the Iranian counterpart. After the Nigerian Prime Minister went to Iran, American diplomats made a comment. They accused Niger of wanting to sell uranium to Iran. And you know, if Iran gets uranium, they're going to create the atomic bomb. They did that expecting Nigerians to come explain themselves. Say, oh no, we did not try to sell any uranium to them, because that's what most African people would do. But unfortunately for them, the Nigerian then say to them, okay, it's not for you to tell us who we're going to cooperate with. It's not for you to indicate who's going to be our partners. You know what? You actually pack your stuff and leave. That's when the Americans were asked to leave the country. That's the context. Now, this congressman is very pissed off on how Americans decided to leave without the fight. Let me remind you here, Iraq has an American base. And back in time, Iraq asked Americans to leave their base, to take their base and leave the country. You know what they did? They said, we are not leaving. Before we leave your country, you need to pay us the money we've invested in your country on building our military base.
At some point, we want to get out. But this isn't the right point. The other thing is, if we do get out, we've spent a tremendous amount of money on building airports and building, it's one of the largest embassies we have in the world, Mike. And we want to be reimbursed for the various costs that we have had, and they're very significant. But we'll work something out. And I talk sanctions, but I'm only talking sanctions if we're not treated with respect. We have to be treated with respect.
You need to pay us for the money we've use without asking you to build our military base on your land. So they stayed forcefully in Iraq. But unlike Iraq, in Niger, they packed their stuff and left. Now this congressman is pissed off, saying, it's not late. This is so un-American to just leave and go. Why would you leave? Let's go back to these third world countries. If they dare turn on the defense system, we're going to bomb them and show them they're nothing. Third world people. That's what he's saying. And he says it's not late. Well, they are special people. You're not. You're nobodies. You're not worth it. You're not worth the time. Third world country. I don't know how I feel about this. Let me know how you feel about this. God bless.